Downeast Mike, what are you doing? No, I'm just relaxing. I'm reading latest edition of Nexus. It's all about crop circles. Well, you've got a podcast to do. And it's got monkey virus, tag it in Trump, and all sorts of stuff. What am I paying you for? I'm just here for eye candy.
You're listening to the Downeast Mike podcast, the quirky little podcast from Maine. And now, your host, Downeast Mike.
Good morning, everybody. This is Downeast Mike of the world famous Downeast Mike podcast, coming to you live from Downeast Maine, where there's always something happening of a festive nature. Today is Sunday, December 22nd, 2024. We have episode number 130, news and commentary. Whole bunch of exciting things. Some of it's whimsy, some of it's true, and the interpretation of it all is entirely up to you. We do like to remind listeners and viewers that the Downeast Mike podcast contains no mean words, just wholesome goodness from Downeast Maine. In today's episode, we have a Coast Guard sinking from 1975. Don't Spank. It's an editorial about spanking from 1975. Probably not what you think. One Biscuit A Day story from 1898. That's an interesting one. There's a bunch of interesting stuff from 1898. We're going to get to that in a second. The author, Barclay, has a new book coming out in 2025. Vacations Can Be Murder, etc. We'll review a little bit of that upcoming book in just a moment, too, on the Downeast Mike podcast. We start off, actually, with a word of the day. I bet I'm going to mispronounce this, but we're going to try. I don't have the robot to pronounce it for me here. Anathematize. Anathematize. That's our word of the day. It's when, in the 16th century, shows where our minds are, English speakers needing a verb that meaning to condemned by anathema. I'll probably do that one wrong, too. That's an official curse from the church authority. And who wants to be cursed by the church authority? I know I don't. Anathematize proved to be just the right word. Anathema, I think it is. But it didn't originate in English as a combination of the noun. It's based on the Latin, and it can still indicate solemn, formal condemnation, but today it can also have milder application. It means simply a vigorous denunciation, anathematize. We don't hear that a lot. Something or someone intensely disliked or loathed. Some of the synonyms are beshrew, curse, imprecate, and maledict. Wow. That's pretty heavy duty to start the day with. So let's go back to 1975. This is out of Bangor area. A rescue boat goes under from Jonesport. There was a coastal hurricane. Wait till we get to the wind speed here. This is amazing. Jonesport, a coastal hurricane force storm Saturday night left a Coast Guard patrol boat sunk, 2 lobster boats damaged, and other pieces of equipment missing or damaged. I hate it when the equipment goes missing or gets damaged. Coast Guard officials are trying to pinpoint the causes for their boat losing its steering power. The boat was pulled ashore Sunday afternoon, and it will be examined to determine whether the propeller system became snagged with mooring lines during a rescue attempt Saturday night. The winds were gusting to 85 knots in some areas of the coastline on Saturday. a 40-foot steel Coast Guard boat, and those boats are tough. You can roll those right over if you want to. You don't want to be in them. It sank in waters at the mouth of Sawyer Cove in Jonesport. The craft and 4 main crew were in the process of aiding Maurice Alley, who reported his boat dragging its mooring. So we have quite a little picture here in this storm, don't we? Before the rescue could be completed, the patrol boat lost power and was swamped by seas running 3 to 5 feet high. One Coast Guardsman fell overboard. He managed to swim to the Jonesport shoreline, while his companions abandoned the patrol boat by jumping aboard the Alley boat. They were later rescued by a second patrol boat. At West Jonesport, a 30-foot lobster boat carrying 30 traps was blown from its moorings and was severely damaged on the rocks of the mainland. That boat was owned by Clifford Norton. I don't know Clifford. At Eastport, Coast Guard officials pumped out a 30-foot boat owned by Robert Baker of Eastport after the boat filled to its rails and nearly sank. That is really something, but 85 knots the winds were blowing. We have some bad movie roundup from this day, 1975. Over at the Brewer Cinema, it was Airport 1975 with Charlton Heston. Out of my cold dead hands, isn't that what he said? Then there was another movie, Macon County Line. It was in their slug line there. It was the fall of '54, a time when laughing was easy, and laugh they did until they crossed the Macon-Dixon line. Mason-Dixon line. Looks like they misspelled it. Burt Reynolds in The Longest Yard. That was in 1975. The audiences don't just see it. They talk to it. They cheer it. They roar with it, they explode with it, they love it. And it's got Burt Reynolds with it looks like he's got like 5 shirts on, but it's a black and white picture. He's got like 5 shirts on, but they're all open. In his, his chest there looks like a carpet or something. There was another movie over at Westgate Cinema at the Westgate Mall. Positively ends on Tuesday, the last run of this show. Shows at 7 and 8:45. It was called Flash Gordon. And then it says not to be confused with the original Flash Gordon. I'm not sure what that movie was about. They also, over at Bangor Cinema, they had The Island at the Top of the World. It was a Disney movie, a $1 entry fee for that one. And it was also showing Winnie the Pooh and Tigger 2. Don't you think the kids would come out of that one all wound up? Here's our story on spanking. It was an editorial / opinion piece in the Bangor paper. George Thostenson, M.D., and dear doctor, at what age do you suggest a child be spanked? In other words, how old should a child be to understand the meaning of a scolding or a light slap on the bottom or hand? And then the doctor responds, the age of 4 is usually considered the age at which a child understands the meaning of a scolding. But there's no particular age for spanking if it has to be done at all. You might be surprised to know the number of children who are raised without the need for spanking. On this question, there are no hard or fast guidelines. Much depends on the temperament of the parent and the child's response to discipline. Yeah, her child's response to getting smacked. For a serious misdemeanor, such as running into the street, playing with matches, or committing some act that is truly destructive or harmful to the child or to others, spanking may be in order, but it must follow immediately upon the offense to be meaningful. Don't wait until Daddy comes home hours later. Spanking can lose its effect because of the manner in which it's administered, and in such cases can lead to resentment and more provocative behavior. When used as punishment, it's best done with a single slap on the butt or the hand, and should be accompanied with a clear explanation of the punishment. A light slap is just as effective as a heavy one. Don't argue. When a child understands that no means business, discipline other than spanking will work as well, if not better. Denial of a toy, a privilege, even of the car in the case of an adolescent. Oh, you're not taking the car out that drive. Even that carries weight. No child should ever be boxed on the ears or hit in the face or head or yanked by the arms. These harsh acts can cause physical injury. This guy's a genius. Hot-tempered parents who develop a tendency to clout for misbehavior should take stock of themselves. Are they spanking because they are out of sorts, rather than because their child is truly obstreperous? We should have looked that word up too. As you may gather from these remarks, I do not condone spanking as a form of punishment. If I didn't know that parents would do it no matter what is recommended, I would say flatly, don't spank. That's the message of the day. That was in 1975. We're going to roll it back to 1898. The headline is that Maine crew nearly starved. Men on a Rockland bark, it's a small ship, subsisted on 1 biscuit a day each for 10 days. When they were overhauled by the steamer Wasteland and furnished relief, this is out of Queenstown, the Red Star steamer Wasteland from Philadelphia, on December 10th for Liverpool, it arrived at Queenstown on Tuesday and reported that she spoke the bark J.H. Bowers of Rockland, Maine on December 12th, and they were short of food, her crew having subsisted on 1 biscuit a day for 10 days. The Wasteland supplied her with provisions. The Bowers sailed from Rosario September 20th for Boston and had been out 83 days. Bad enough being on a ship for a long time, but nothing to eat but a biscuit. Here's a little blurb here. At one of our clubs a few evenings ago, a capitalist building a $2,000 tenement house said it was surprising to learn how many states contributed towards the construction of a medium-cost house. He found in this house that the stone and brick were from Maine, the spruce frame and boards from New Hampshire, shingles from the British provinces, window frames of stock from Georgia, cypress and the whitewood door frames of stock from Florida and Tennessee, windows from Michigan, glass from New Jersey, and doors from Washington. The nails came from Pennsylvania and the paint from New York. There were 13 states and a foreign country all going into the building of this new apartment house. And that's interesting. In 1898, they had that kind of interstate commerce. Here's a story out of Stockton Springs. What title is What Maine Women Are Doing. At Stockton Springs, they have raised $248 and laid it out in improvements, village improvements. And won't somebody stop it? It's spreading worse than a chain letter. That item, which all the papers are publishing, about the Village Improvement Society of Stockton Springs raising $24 for new sidewalks. The idea, $24 only, when we women worked and got together, $248.65, and we've laid it all out, too. This complaint came to the Journal's writer from one of the bright young ladies of the village of Stockton Springs, and surely the VIPS Society should be set all right. Some careless typo or equally heedless proofreader overlooked the figure, and it should have been $248. So they're talking about the amount of money that was reported. Stockton Springs, like many other small towns, is not overburdened with rich people, or rather has a large number of small taxpayers who find the burden of taxation to meet the most necessary expenses of the town all that they can bear. Then there's the inevitable outback contingent who were adverse to providing luxuries for the village folks, and so it was that year after year appropriations for sidewalks for the village of Stockton Springs could not obtain in the annual town meeting. Long way to say they weren't going to spring for sidewalks, so the ladies went out and did it on their own. The walks were built in the most prosperous days of the town, and they were in very poor and dangerous condition when the ladies of the village took the matter into their own hands and organized the Ladies' Village Improvement Society of Stockton Springs. Their first and chief aim was to provide better sidewalks. The village was divided into sections, or rather the residents of each street designated as separate committees, and the main street was divided, making 6 committees in all, and each street got up an entertainment to raise money, and then rivalry, friendly of course, helped the thing along. So they built sidewalks. We'll talk about the lumber. When the lumber was purchased for the sidewalks, the men folks braced up a bit and helped saw the planks up and nail them down. But little outside help was necessary, and with the repairs to the old walks and a mile or so of new ones, Stockton Springs now has as good a footing as any in town. In a number of places, the walks are across little gullies and have wire hand ropes that have been stretched between iron standards to prevent falls. On the main village street between 2 of the stores was an old cellar left by a previous conflagration, by a previous fire. It had long been an eyesore, and the owner refusing to improve the place. And the Ladies' Society built a fence in front of this place, much improving it, and now the sidewalks are in good order, and the ladies have on their minds fixed upon various other ideas. In the coming winter, we'll probably see lots of schemes for turning surplus change into the coffers of their deeds. That was a long story about sidewalks, wasn't it? Here's a story, a legacy from a grave. It was found in the false bottom of a box used to hold flowers. After the lapse of a quarter of a century, a hidden legacy has been found in a Montrose cemetery, according to an account in the New York press. In 1872, there lived near Montrose an old German shoemaker named Schmidt. What else would he be named? He was not rich, but always had plenty of work, and being of a saving disposition, it was known that he had accumulated a little sum. The only relative was a brother who lived in the village, and when the old shoemaker was taken ill, he called the brother to the bedside and gave into his keeping an old wooden box similar to those used for houseplants. The box was filled with pegs, awls, and other appliances of the shoemaker's trade, but nothing else could be found. A diligent search was made of the premises and surrounding grounds for the money it was known that the old man had possessed, but the effort was unrewarded, and at last the matter was forgotten. The brother at first thought he'd throw the box into a rubbish heap, but he reconsidered the decision, as he hated to part with his brother's property, and he placed it in his trunk, where it remained for years. He married, and one day the box was taken from the trunk and given to his little girl to play with. She scattered the shoemaker's implements far and wide, leaving the box kicking about the house. The father was taken ill and died, and the box was used to grow houseplants in during the winter. Finally, the widow decided to place it on her husband's grave and took it to the Montrose cemetery. So here's this old shoemaker's box that everybody thinks is worthless, and she puts it on the husband's grave. It remained through several seasons, acting as a receptacle for growing plants. Last week, it's 1898, not really last week, she tried to move the box, but the wood, rotten with years of exposure, fell apart, and the bottom dropped out, and gold and silver coin rolled in all directions. Overcome with surprise, the woman stood astounded and then investigated. She found that the box had a false bottom, and between the boards the shoemaker had stowed his legacy. On counting the money, $135.50 in gold, silver, and bills was found. It is supposed that the man died before he could explain the reasons for his gift of the box. That is probably true. Here was a story, 1898. There's some talk of an electric railroad being constructed between either Caribou or Presque Isle, Maine, and Washburn. 281 cars of freight came to Portland over the Grand Trunk line between 2:50 a.m. Sunday and 3:20 a.m. Monday. I think that tells us how fast the train was going. That's a long train, isn't it? It's reported that the Canadian Pacific Railroad is making a strong effort to secure a large piece of property on the South Portland shore, intending to build wharves and a mammoth elevator and run ocean steamers the year round. Of course, today the South Portland shore, I think they're carving that up to try to build some apartments there. Of the new Washington County Railroad, there's a railroad report, they're saying that the equipment is modern in design, built by some of the best builders in the country. Their motive power is heavy and equipped with all the modern conveniences. And here's a report on the Penobscot Central Railroad. There's a line extending from Bangor through the villages of Kenduskeag, Corinth to Charleston, a distance of about 27 miles. It is an electric road, but it's a novelty in this part of the country. In fact, there's no other railroad in the United States that uses the particular motive power to be used on this line. The motor known as the patent motor is being used here, which by the use of a gasoline engine generates electricity in the car and is connected with a storage battery to store the electricity generated when the motor's not in use, so that the load on the engine is comparatively constant. The use of this motor does away with powerhouses, overhead construction, and bonding. So isn't that amazing? 1898, they had a hybrid railroad engine that they were using there in Maine, of all places. The accidents, this is all railroad business, it's quite interesting. The accidents in Maine to passengers upon the steam railroads during the year were 5 killed and 100 injured. The accidents for the year 1897 were 25 injured. The increase was largely the result of the derailments of the passenger trains at Newport and Orono on the Maine Central Railroad. There were 9 employees killed and 122 injured, against 20 killed and 70 injured in 1897. Of the number killed, 6 were trainmen. Of the injured, 81 were trainmen. Of trespassers, there were 18 killed and 17 injured, and 15 injured compared to those not trespassing. So railroads are pretty deadly in Maine. The number of persons injured by the operation of street railroads for the year ending June 30th, 1898 was 14, with 1 being killed. The number of passengers injured was 12, none injured fatally. 6 of those were injured upon the Lewiston and Auburn Horse Railroad by a rear-end collision. The man killed was an old man who's quite deaf, and he stepped in front of a car. And then they give this statistic. I don't know if this is true or not. Considering that 14,651,000 people were carried, travel by street railways is shown to be pretty safe. Those must be numbers for the entire United States. One last little blurb on the railroad thing. The increase was a result of construction of the Portland and Yarmouth Electric Railway from Portland to Yarmouth Village, 13 miles. The building by the Lewiston, Brunswick, and Bass Street Railway of 18 miles of road from Lewiston to Topsham, and that connected up to Auburn with the Brunswick Electric Railway. So they had all these electric rails all throughout the region at this time in 1898. Of course, today they're all torn up. We had a little story here, about the Caribou doctors were puzzled. The little Perham girl cannot be awakened from her long sleep. Sadie, the 13-year-old daughter of Mr. and Mrs. J.C. Wright of Perham, fell asleep at her desk in school last Tuesday, and she's been sleeping ever since, despite the efforts of science to waken her. An electric battery was applied, and at first she was aroused so far as to open her eyes and talk incoherently, but she soon went to sleep again. The child's parents state that when Sadie was 10 years old, she had fallen asleep one day and slept over 24 hours, but had never complained of sleepiness more than was ordinary in a young child. Her breathing is regular but low. Dr. Porter of Caribou says the case is a puzzling one, but that he expects the sleeper will awaken as well as ever. We may never know if she woke up or not. It had an ad in the Lewiston paper. The attention of owners of horses is called to Section S of Chapter 36 of the Revised Ordinances of the City of Lewiston relative to fast driving in any highway, street, town way, or public passageway in the city. Violations of this ordinance will be promptly punished. And that was Henry Wang, city marshal, and he had taken out an ad in the paper because he didn't like that fast driving going on. Well, we have an honorary mammal of the moment. This is not native to Maine. It's called the paca, or the spotted cavy. It's an animal of the New World who digs a burrow like a rabbit, to which he's been compared, although there is scarcely any likeness between these two animals. He's much larger than the rabbit and even larger than the hare. He has a round head, and the snout is short. He is fat and bulky, and by the form of his body he is more like a pig, as well as by grunting, waddling, and the manner of eating. For he does not use, as the rabbit does, his forefeet to carry food to his mouth, but he grabs up the earth like the hog to find his subsistence. The color of the back is dark brown or liver-colored, but it's lighter on the sides, which are beautifully marked with lines of white spots running in parallel directions from its throat to its rump. Those on the upper part of the body are perfectly distinct. The belly is white. Its head is large, its ears short and naked. We're talking about a paca here, if you're just tuning in. Its eyes are full and placed high in its head near the ears. It has 2 strong yellow cutting teeth in each jaw. Its mouth is small, its upper lip divided, and it has long whiskers on. This paca has everything. It has long whiskers on its lips and on each side of its head under the ears. This description is just breaking me here. Its legs are short with 4 toes on the fore and 3 on the hind foot, and it has no tail. The paca inhabit the banks of rivers and are found in damp and hot places of South America. And then they note, somewhat sadly, the flesh is very good to eat and excessively fat. Their skin also is eaten as of that of a pig. The natives of Brazil consider the flesh to be a great delicacy. A perpetual war is therefore carried out against these poor animals. Hunters found it very difficult to take them alive, and when they're surprised in their burrows, which have 2 openings, they defend themselves and bite with great rage and inveteracy. When pursued, they take to the water and escape by diving. If attacked by dogs, it defends itself vigorously, I guess. Their skin, although covered with short and rough hair, is valuable because it's spotted on the sides. These animals bring forth young in abundance. Men and animals of prey destroy a great quantity of them, and yet the species is still numerous. They are peculiar to South America and are found nowhere in the old continent, the paca, and they have a picture of it here. Cute little fella, looks sort of like a chipmunk, but much bigger. Pig-like bodies, large heads, and swollen cheeks. Wow. What else do we have on the paca? That's about it on the paca. They've become scarce or extinct in forests near human settlements, although they're common where not intensely hunted for their tender veal-like flesh. Their ecological and behavioral traits make it difficult to manage in captivity for meat production, but maintenance of intact forest habitat might result in locally sustainable hunting yields. There's also a mountain paca, too, that lives up in the mountain, of course. I like how they note here, no paca fossils have been discovered. Interesting. Oh, we wanted to mention there's an upcoming book. In February 2025, Level Best Books will release Vacations Can Be Murder, a true crime lover's travel guide of New England. It'll be the first of a multi-volume series covering the U.S. and beyond. It should interest those who enjoy reading about true crime, law enforcement, the paranormal, and cemeteries, and those who want to see where it all happened. The first volume is going to cover Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. It's a perfect reference for travelers and travel agents, tour operators, and even event planners. The topics within each state will include major crimes in the state and where those crimes were committed, down to the street name, but not the exact street number for private houses. More books to read about those crimes. Haunted restaurants and hotels. Restaurants and hotels with a crime or punishment connection. Crime museums and other attractions. True crime and ghost tours. And where the criminals are jailed, where the bodies are buried. And easy to follow itineraries that bring all the different pieces together in a logical way, and then also noting resources for victims of such crimes. The main chapter in the volume is going to summarize crimes spanning from 1734 until the present. Well, that'd be interesting. And include tales of the evil doings of Thane Ormsby, Captain James Purrington, Nicholas Sexton, Daniel Wilkinson, and others, including the tragic 2023 mass shootings by Robert Card and Lewiston will be included in that. The author is Dawn Barclay. She's a veteran travel reporter. She has won the Lowell Thomas Gold Award from the Society of American Travel Writers Foundation in 2023 for the Autism Travel Bible, which is called Traveling Different, Vacation Strategies for Parents of the Anxious, the Inflexible, and the Neurodiverse. Her articles have appeared in many trade and consumer publications, including Costco Connection. The book's going to be published by Level Best Books. It'll be available at all major online retailers, including Amazon and Barnes & Noble, as well as independent bookstores. And you can find out more about Dawn Barclay's book at vacationscanbemurder.com, vacationscanbemurder.com. Donna reached out to Downeast Mike, and we're going to get her on the podcast to talk about some of those interesting stories soon. And that's about it for the podcast today. We're not going to do the weather forecast because I think we can look outside and see that it's winter. It's going to be winter for a while. I hope until next time we meet again that you and your loved ones have a day that's full of grace, love, and kindness. We'll see you. Walk into the room, the table set for two. There's always room for you, well, everybody's beautiful tonight. Everybody's dancing here and feeling alright. Everybody's beautiful tonight under one artificial moon. Clear away the table, chairs, making room for dancing, making room for all our little cares. Watching them slip away, everybody's dancing here and everybody's beautiful tonight. Everybody's dancing